Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Gez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Gez Perez, a former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take action on without hype in unleashing your greatness in life and in business. Now, we appreciate you plugging in and spending time with us, and we have a very special guest. I'm super grateful to have him. For more than 2 decades, he has helped business owners all across the United States to tackle the challenge that a lack of financial literacy creates. As a founder of Uplevel Entrepreneur, a business coach, a financial strategist, and a committed problem solver, Edward has dedicated his career to creating his by design methodology that focuses on sharing actionable, tested into the trenches tools, techniques, and strategies to help entrepreneurs develop mastery over the mindset, money, and momentum necessary to achieve what he refers as real wealth. Now, he is on a mission to materially improve the lives and businesses of 1 million freedom-loving, family-focused entrepreneurs. Now, in addition to Uplevel Entrepreneur, he has built and scaled multiple 7-figure businesses spanning from a financial planning firm to an accounting practice and a digital marketing agency, with a few others sprinkled in there in between. Now, Edward is a member of the board of trustees of a university involved in multiple community service organization. Now, he manages to coordinate all of while still continuing his personal journey to success. When Edward is not actively helping business owners to improve their financial lives, he can be found investing his time with his amazing wife and 2 children. Depending on the day, you might catch him out on the tennis courts, enjoying some of their whole family food, plant-based dishes at a local eatery, taking day trips on the family boat, or exploring new vacation destinations. Now, he still somehow finds the time to continuing to prioritize opportunities to share company with mentors and like-minded entrepreneurs. He's co-located both in areas of New Jersey and Florida, and I'm really grateful to have Edward. Edward, welcome to the show.
Gez, thank you so much for having me. This is an amazing thing that you're doing. So I just want to give all the lauds to you because you basically put together an ecosystem in which people can actually transform their lives. So you deserve all the credit.
Thanks, Edward. Like yourself as well, transforming the lives of others as well as businesses. Can you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I spent the past 24 plus years building and scaling businesses of my own and helping other business owners to do the exact same thing. I focus a lot more on the financial side of the spectrum with regard to wealth creation, accumulation, and protection. And primarily I serve a lot of business owners here in the United States. But when it comes to motivation, anyone, anywhere in the world can benefit from anything that is motivating to them. So if I can add value to your audience, I'm happy to do it.
So how did you get started in business? You've got a wealth of experience, right through finances as well as lifestyle. But how did you get started and what actually got you into business?
Sure. Well, it's a bit of a winding road. I actually had my first experience with entrepreneurism in the summer after my 2nd grade. So I was about 7 years old.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird story. Like I didn't come from means. So like my family definitely struggled financially. I mean, we had to work really hard just to get up to the poverty line. When it came to money issues, there was a lot of scarcity mentality growing up. And I can remember at one point that summer after 2nd grade, asking my mom for a specific toy. And her initial response was, "We can't afford it. No, we can't afford it." But then she made a secondary comment to that, in that if I want it, I have to figure out how to get it. Meaning I have to figure out how to make money in order to get it. And that was 2 lessons that I learned in that moment. One was a bad lesson that money is scarce. And that lesson, unfortunately, stuck with me for a very, very long time, well into my early 20s. But the second lesson was also transformative because it told me that if I want something, I can go out and get it. And that's what I did that summer. I opened up a lemonade stand of all things. I mean, I was a kid. I was 7 years old, um, and I was charging 50 cents for a Dixie cup of lemonade that I made myself with water, lemons, not my lemons, my mom's lemons, and sugar, not my sugar, my mom's sugar. So I had really no cost other than labor.
Great leverage there.
Yeah, right, exactly. Um, and then what had happened is I actually made money as a kid. Like I was for a kid. I mean, to me, it was a lot of money at the time, but I made a really bad decision with regard to that money. I went out and I spent it all on candy. I didn't buy the toy. Even though the thing I was actually doing this for, I didn't actually do. I went out and I bought candy. And then what I did is I started giving a lot of the candy away to all my friends, and they got interested. Like, how did you get this candy? I said, well, I made money. Well, how did you make money? And I said, well, I have a lemonade stand. And I was able to convince a few of my friends to actually work for me in multiple lemonade stands around my neighborhood. So I became the guy. I stopped working in my lemonade stand. I became the guy that made the lemonade and delivered it to all these different lemonade stands. And I made a killing that summer. But that was like, again, I had no idea what like franchising was or entrepreneurism was. Like I wanted something, so I went out and I made lemonade. But I learned a lot of lessons in that summer that carried through with me for a long while. One, I started to understand that money is it's not really quote unquote hard to make. I mean, I don't think you need to necessarily work hard to make money, because I actually believe that money follows value creation. So if you go out into the universe and you create value for others, money as a natural byproduct of that. And again, even though I can put it into those terms now, at the time I had no idea how to express that. It was happening. And I did a number of odd jobs in my youth. After that, I was a paper boy. I sold newspaper subscriptions door to door. I worked in a gas station. I mean, I did things to like just make money. And then I started actually my first career after university. I started actually working for the government here in the United States. So I worked for the United States Department of Justice. But I learned pretty quickly that I didn't enjoy that. That I really did enjoy like doing something of my own and creating value on my own for others to benefit from. And I made a switch. I handed in my resignation without a plan B. And that's when I opened up my very first financial planning practice, because I had always had an interest in money, and I started doing workshops in local libraries here in New Jersey. I'm physically in New Jersey at the moment. As you noted earlier, I fly back and forth between New Jersey and Florida because my family and I make Florida more of our permanent environment where we reside. But we have businesses both in New Jersey and Florida. So I fly back and forth in order to take care of them. So I'm physically in New Jersey at the moment. But what I was doing back then, this was in my early 20s, I was going around to local libraries doing workshops on how to family budget. Because again, I had an interest in money. I took a number of finance courses in university as an undergrad. And I just started doing that. And at one point, an individual was there, saw me doing the presentation, asked if they could buy me lunch, and I said absolutely. They bought me lunch the next day, and they introduced me to the world of what financial planning was. And I opened up my very first financial planning practice back in 1998, and I invested all of my time, effort, and energy in learning how like the financial markets worked and how stocks and bonds, etc., operate. But I learned and I invested no time in how to run a business. So I pretty much made every single mistake I think is possible when you're running a business. I think I checked all those boxes. I think I got everything wrong for the first 4 years because I made absolutely no money. I went into debt to the tune of well into the six figures. A little bit more than $250,000 in debt. I had 17 credit cards at my lowest point. I had 17 credit cards, all of which were past due more than 60 days. My car was repossessed. I was getting evicted, and to me, that was my rock bottom. Like, I know that there are a number of people out there, I'm sure people in the audience, that they've had much worse experiences for their rock bottom. I'm not trying to any way say mine was the worst, But for me, that was my rock bottom. I had hit a moment in my life where I had no idea what I was going to do next, because whatever I was doing wasn't working. Um, and I was lucky enough to be able to say at that moment in time, look at myself in the mirror, because that's literally what happened. I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I left my ego at the door, which again, my ego at the time was probably the thing that was holding me back the most. But I left it at the door. I made outreaches to individuals who would later become my mentors, people who had actually done what I was doing and made it through to the other side with milestones of success that I would only hope to aspire to. I'd never even imagined that it could have been possible. And I literally just started asking questions intently and deliberately, that led to me being able to just model their behavior and literally do what they told me to do, because whatever I was doing wasn't working. So what was the risk? I mean, there was nothing, there was nowhere further down I could go, at least in my mind at that moment in time. And
Can I just ask a question whilst we're through the beginning stages? Because a lot of people, whether they've just started or they're actually currently struggling, and those who are listening and watching to the podcast show, in terms of your earlier challenges as an entrepreneur, was it purely mainly because there weren't any systems or processes, or maybe the mindset or your surroundings? You mentioned a big word called ego, but was there anything else that you kind of struggled earlier on and you said, you know what, enough is enough? I mean, that rock bottom is quite rock bottom with financial debt, because it can weigh on your
oh
emotions,
my
it can weigh
goodness,
on
my
your family, it
emotions,
can
my
weigh so
spirituality,
many,
all of
yeah.
my relationships suffered.
Yeah. How did you overcome these challenges earlier on?
Well,
Like, how did
again,
you kind of made yourself say, you know what, enough is enough?
yeah, that's literally what happened. I mean, I could I can literally tell you exactly what happened. When it was one morning, I had I left normally for work, usually around 7 to 7:30 in the morning each day, in order to head into the office from where I was staying, the apartment I was in. And I can I can remember having a knock on the door that morning. It was about 6:45, 6:50 in the morning. And I was like, oh, what's going on? It's really early for someone to be knocking. And I remember walking down because I was in an apartment. I walked down the stairs to open the door, and there were two men standing at the door, and one of them had a clipboard, and they were there to take my car, because I had not made payments in like multiple months. Um, and yeah, they were there to repossess. I can remember having to sign a piece of paper for them to be able to take it. And I had to go to work that day, and now I didn't have a car to get to work. I mean, that was the day that it had like the the switch in my mind had flipped, because it was for again, I recognize that other people have had way worse things happen to them. I totally understand it. For me, in that moment, I could remember turning around after I gave them the key, um, one key, because I couldn't find the other one. I was struggling to try and find the other one. I couldn't find it. I gave them the one key. They took my car onto a flatbed and drove off, and I went back inside. I can remember walking past. I had this little round kitchen table. When I say little, it was like barely one person fit, not even two. It was like this little thing. And on top of it was piled like all of my bills. Most of the envelopes were unopened because I knew what they said inside. It was like past due, like ridiculous red stamps on them type of thing. So they were sitting there piled, and I walked past that, and I had one bathroom, and walking into the bathroom, the door open, and right in front of me when I walked in is the mirror, and I can remember walking up to the sink and looking in the mirror, and that was the moment I literally stared myself in the face and said, "Edward, what are you doing? This isn't working." That was the moment that, for me, my rock bottom hit. And it was a collection of things that led to that, no pun intended, collection. Um, but I was in an environment where, one, my money mindset was completely wrong. Again, a lot of that bled over from the things that and lessons that I learned at home, because I did not come from anywhere near an abundance mentality at home. We were always in a scarcity mindset. So it was almost like indoctrinated within me when money came in for it to go immediately out, because you just, it was like a revolving door. And so I made all horrible decisions regarding money. The second thing was I was in a state of acting as if, because I was a business owner and I had to show that I was doing well, and all of my sense of self and self-worth was based on outside. It was not internal. Like, again, these are lessons I've learned later in life, that true self-worth is something that should come from inside. It's not something that comes from outside. But at the time, I was living for outside respect and outside praise, etc. All of which, again, now looking back on it, was kind of silly. But I'm very happy I went through that experience, because it showed me what is not important and what isn't true. And all of those things, all of those challenges that I experienced, it really ruined a lot of aspects of my life at the time. Like, my money was in ridiculous shape. My relationships, all of which, friendships, personal relationships, they all suffered. Emotionally, I was a wreck, even though I tried to put on a really good, strong face for everyone. Yeah, the only reason I can think of that I was able to get and stay as long as I was in that position is because I'm extremely stubborn, and I would never give up. Like, there's just something I think that's like in me that causes me to just not quit. Like, I just don't. Like, I'll pivot, I'll make a change, but I won't quit. It's just something that's weird. Like, I guess something that I'm born with. Because it's not something that was really ever taught to me. In fact, the opposite was always taught to me. I mean, I constantly was seeing people quitting all the time. And maybe that's the lesson that I learned, that because I didn't like what they were getting from the outcome of quitting. So I was sort of doing it almost in defiance, if you will, of all of the examples I was being shown throughout my childhood. But at this point in my life, once I started reaching out to mentors and making the changes that matter, I mean, the results were almost immediate. So 4 years took place in business where I got to that $250,000 debt environment. That's when I hit my rock bottom. I started reaching out to mentors, started doing things different. That very next year, I had broken even for the first time. Like, I hadn't lost money. Like, 1 year. Like, totally transformed like what I was doing. And by the second year thereafter, I had paid off all my debt. Like, I had changed my financial trajectory in a span of 48 months. Like,
Was it hard to let go of that, of letting go of what you know and then embracing the new? Or was it because there was a trigger inside of you? You said, look, you know
yeah,
what? I've got no more options.
it was not hard at
I,
all. Like, literally, like I had literally essentially ruined my entire life. Like, everything. And again, it's not an overstatement. Like, for me,
yeah.
like, my life, every aspect of it was in ruins. Like, my finances were in ruins, my relationships were in ruins, my health was horrible, my emotional state was a wreck, my spirituality was struggling. I mean, everything about me at that point in my life was just down the tubes. I mean, again, the only reason I was still standing is because I just wouldn't give up. And I think a lot of people go through things like this in their life to different degrees. But when you're looking deep in yourself, that's when you start to learn who you are. When you really examine where you are in life, and then you start to realize that the reason you are here is because what you've been doing over the course of the past number of years. Because everything you have done has led you to here. And if you don't want to be here, if you actually want to be here, you need to learn the things that'll take you there. You need to figure that out. And if you can't figure that out yourself, which was definitely the case with me, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what I didn't know. You need to reach out to mentors. And whether that's someone you actually physically reach out to, or you vicariously do that through things like podcasts and books and going to events, etc. All of those things expose you to thoughts and methodologies that maybe you're not aware of. And the reality is this: the vast majority of the world is not aware of it, because if they were, the vast majority of the world would have outcomes that they actually desire. So you can't listen to everyone because everyone is not right. But there are a select few that you can listen to actually get you to move the needle within your own life. And it's incumbent upon you to go out and find those voices and be critical with regard to what you're listening to. Trust but verify everything.
Yeah, and that's really important. I mean, like everything that you're saying to this point resonates a lot of truth because it was a challenge. However, it wasn't too difficult because you reached out for help, and I think that letting go of the ego, say, you know what, the as if, that's powerful as well. Just picking up those languages that you mentioned, the as if. A lot of people live in this as if, knowing that they're actually struggling and not reaching out for help. You've done that a wonderful job in reaching out for mentors, and I think that's one of the patterns for success. And you said about modeling, right? And reaching out to mentors, and figuring out, plus learning from them who've gone years ahead of you and learning from their mistakes. But I mean, you built a lot of mindset shifts. You built a lot, and you said it was easy for you to pivot, but building these building blocks, 12 months, that's amazing to break even at 250K. Uh, there had to be a lot of mindset shifts. So, I mean, you're experience, coaching others as well for success, building a 6 to 7 figure business. How do you need to go from there to where you want to be? And what were the mindset shifts that you need to recalibrate and really realign to that?
Well, I think I point some of my ability to do it quickly to some of the things and lessons I learned in university, because that's what I was exposed to, a philosophy called Stoicism back in university. And the Stoics basically believe that you shouldn't really invest any energy in anything that's outside of your control, which is most things in life. And only invest energy in things you can control, because that's then productive energy utilization. Anything else is a waste. So one of the mentors that I had reached out to for help reminded me of that truth, reminded me that, hey, listen, you're spending all of your energy on things that literally you can't control the outcome. If you just stop doing that and just start investing only in areas that you can move the needle, you'll immediately see impact, because now your energy is actually being put to productive use. You see, there's a difference between the concept of effort and work. So, I mean, you've heard of the phrase like busy work. I mean, that's a misnomer. I mean, that's completely the wrong phrase, because busy work isn't really work. It's just effort being expended. Like I can sit here and push against this wall all day long, and I'm exerting effort, but there's no productive utilization there. So work is the productive utilization of effort. So what's the outcome? I can use that same amount of energy and I can move something on my desk. Now I've actually conducted work. I've done something. There's the productive utilization of that work. And it's incumbent upon you to figure out what in your life is the appropriate application of productive energy. Like, where can you move the needle? What is it that you're doing? And these are lessons that I learned early in business. Like, again, where am I spending my dollars when it came to business decisions for me? Was I spending it on things that actually resulted in an outcome I desired? Or was it being spent in order to project or portray an image that I was trying to portray to others that really had no benefit to me in the long run? Because here's the other truth. Vast majority of people don't care about you, like, at all. Vast majority of people don't even think about you. They always think about, again, you almost always think about yourselves. Now, that is scary, but also liberating. Because if that's true, then why not live the life you actually want instead of trying to live a life to please others and create? Doesn't mean you should be rude or in any way negative or harmful to others. It just means live your life and recognize that you are the architect. I often say that you're the author, the director, and the main character in your story. So act appropriately. You get to decide what it is that you want in life, and then you also have the privilege of being able to go after it. That's that's terrifying for a lot of people because that means you're the responsible party. But it's also liberating because you're the responsible party. You get to make those choices and decisions. So it was those mindset shifts that I had earlier on that just helped me put myself in the right framework to be able to make progress toward an intended goal, as opposed to having no clue as to what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And then as I progressed and started having progress, I exposed myself to mentors who were even higher. Because that's the other thing. Oftentimes, we do reach out and we get lessons and we incorporate those lessons, but then we stop. That's silly. Life should be an ongoing pursuit of more and more knowledge, because that's the only way to continue to improve. Because again, everything you know now and have done now is what has gotten you to where you are. If you want to get to a different level, then you need to learn new things and do different things. And for me, I made a decision in my 20s that I wanted to have a continual escalation of where I was in life. Again, some of that was money motivated, meaning, or money centric, meaning where do I want to be financially from a financial freedom standpoint. So I did things that were in alignment with financial attainment. But I also did things with regard to social attainment, with regard to relationship attainment, spirituality attainment. All of the things that I do are based on outcomes I want within aspects of my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So as you continue to progress forward with pace, and I love it because, some people tend to stop and then they're satisfied, but not reaching to their complete full potential. What are the most important elements to actually scale up? Because, you're all about up leveling, upscaling, with productivity, using the right type of energy. What are the most important elements that you've learned and you are currently using and actually teaching as well at the same time to scale your business?
Well, I think scale is accomplished through leverage. And there are 4 aspects of leverage that people can get engaged in. I'm going to speak within the context of a business owner, but it's applicable regardless of what you're doing. You just have to obviously nuance, if you will, the terminology for your circumstance. But the 4 aspects of leverage are: 1, labor, meaning hands and feet. So for a business owner, if you want to get more, you can either personally work more or duplicate yourself or replicate yourself through more hands and feet in the business. So that's one aspect of leverage, leveraging other people's labor, effort, creativity. All of those things add value to the bottom line, potentially, if you do the right selection process. But the second aspect of leverage happens through code or technology. Once you've been able to replicate yourself with hands and feet, you then want to improve upon the productivity of those hands and feet with technology. So leveraging code gives you the ability to do that. Again, within business, that could be like a CRM system or a project management system or a financial accounting system. Within your own personal life, it could just be your time management programs. Like, what are you doing in order, utilizing technology in order to leverage your time more efficiently and effectively? The third aspect of leverage is capital, other people's money, being able to use capital in a way that's intelligent based on underlying true financial principles. Meaning you don't leverage or utilize other people's money in order to acquire liabilities. You only do that to acquire assets. And then in order to do that, you need to understand what my definitions of assets and liabilities are. For me, an asset is anything which you control, which generates cash flow for you, and a liability is anything that takes cash flow from you. A very, very simple definition, and a lot of accountants would not agree with that definition, but the simple definition has worked for me, and I believe it will work for many. If you just look at everything in life under that dichotomy, that very clear dichotomy, if it generates cash flow for you and you control it, then it's an asset. If it takes any type of cash flow from you, then it's a liability. If you just have that as your basic principle, when you're utilizing other people's money, you only want to do that if it's generating cash flow for you, because you want the cash flow to support the carry cost of that lending. If you're utilizing other people's money to acquire a liability, then it's your own labor that has to support that liability. And that's a losing proposition, so that's not really leverage. And then the fourth aspect of leverage in order to get scale is to leverage your community, essentially your audience, the constituents that you have association with, so that they can assist you in your enterprise. Within business, that could be creating a community of your clients and customers. Within your own personal life, it's the friendships and networks that you make. Again, all of those things are leverage, and leverage adds scale, regardless of where you want it. If you want to take your business to the next level, you use some combination, if not all, of those four aspects of leverage. If you want your life to get to the next level, you use some combination, if not all, of those four aspects of leverage. And again, this is something that I've developed over the course of the past almost 24 years now, that I've been doing it. And for me, it's worked. I don't know if it will work for the audience that's consuming this at the moment, but I do know that it's worked for me, and it's worked for the countless business owners that I've been able to sit down and provide my perspective.
Wow, I'm truly inspired, because when you take it to that level in terms of leverage, then you're able to scale. And it's just mind blowing. In terms of, because you also sharing your messages as well in previous messages, whether it's in podcasts and your clients as well. One of the things is that you mentioned is about enemies of wealth building and creation. Can you share one of those enemies of what they are that potentially would discourage, or things that kind of like pull you back? Can you share one of those thoughts?
Yeah, I think the three main enemies that I've seen, again, in my career, and also vicariously through the countless business owners that I've been exposed to and been fortunate enough to be considered friends and part of my growing network, are the threefold. They're inflation, procrastination, and taxation. Because all three take money from you. And again, it may not be intuitive, but just walk with me here. Inflation is a hidden tax. I mean, as prices rise and the value of your currency goes down, you're essentially paying a tax that you didn't vote for, because monetary policy is usually implemented outside of the bounds of traditional representation. So it's usually some sort of mechanism that's put in place through policymakers that are not always elected. So it's a frustrating area for me, because I'm a libertarian here in the United States, which means I just don't like the government at all. Especially don't like them touching my wallet.
Right?
So
taking your money away.
Exactly. So inflation is that first enemy. The second enemy is procrastination. You may be saying, well, wait a minute, Edward, how does procrastination take money from me? Because every moment you delay is a moment money can't be working for you. You see, your money has two roles. I mean, it's either going to be employed by you, meaning you're going to put it to work to generate more money, or it's going to be employed by someone else. So if you're not prudent with how your money is being operated and utilized, you're going to lose it. Because money is always going to be generating more money. It's just, is it going to be generating it for you, or is it going to be generating it for someone else? And there is an abundance out there. I mean, there's no scarcity with regard to money, because if you agree with the precept I shared earlier, that money is just a byproduct of value creation, there's no limit, because you can always create more value. So if you go out into the marketplace and create value for someone, money is that byproduct. Therefore, it's not a scarcity mentality, meaning there's not a limited supply of it. Because if you go and take it, it doesn't mean you're taking it from someone else. Because if you are earning money, you've exchanged value in order to get the money. So you've given something of value to get something of value. So it's not like you're taking something away from someone else. You're actually creating something. When you earn through value creation, you've created more. The way I talk about it is, it's almost like if you go to the gym and you exercise and you gain some muscle, you didn't take it from someone else, right? I mean, it's part of what you are doing in order to create value within your own life. Like, you're creating the value money is the byproduct. But procrastination stops you from engaging in value creation, which means it is now taking money away from you because time lost cannot be regained because it's a non-renewable resource. So every moment you delay is gone. It is what it is. And then the third aspect or enemy, if you will, of wealth is taxation. So if you don't understand taxation and how taxation impacts you in your financial life, then you are bound to be giving the government more than you were required to. Yeah. Because there is an absolute minimum that you're required to pay. And in order to figure that out, you just need to understand the tax code. Here in the United States, I've spent a good solid decade just diving into what the tax code is. Like our tax code here in the US is ridiculously long. I mean, it's more than 17,000 pages.
You're paying
current system.
Everything and anything that's got to do with tax. Like
Pretty
paying
much.
for this. Tax on top.
I've made a deep dive. I've become a student of that. I mean, I'm also a lawyer too. So like my area of specialty in law is tax law. Tax law, family law, business law.
Edward.
So within the United States, that's where my expertise is. I'm not privy to all of the different tax systems, but I do know that all systems that impose a tax, they have a set of standards codified within the tax code of that various jurisdiction that stipulates what that particular government wants. Because remember, there are two purposes of tax. One is to raise revenue so that the sovereign has the ability to go out and operate the government. And two, it is to incent certain actions amongst the population. Because there are some things that the government, again, regardless of what the government is, there's some things the government is good at and some of the things that the government is not good at. I think the vast majority of the things they're not good at. But for the most part, the tax code is typically utilized as an incentive to inspire and motivate businesses and individuals to do the things that the government is not good at. So again, here in the United States, things like creating housing, creating jobs. When you do those types of things, which the government is not always good at doing, the tax code rewards those individuals for taking the risk to do it through reducing tax burden. So you're incentivized through the tax code to engage in certain activities. And if you understand your respective tax code, you can then learn the types of things that reward you for taking the right types of risk. So understanding and what the enemies are and then mastering them gives you a leg up. And I don't profess to be the expert in all things, but I do know a whole lot about the things that I spend my time in because I've chosen to be a student of those things. And I've also been the guinea pig. I mean, I've tested out a lot of the things, practices on not a lot. I test out everything I share with others. I test out first on myself because I would not be comfortable sharing it with someone else unless I know that, one, how it works, and two, that it works.
Yeah. And, I really acknowledge you just with the journey that you shared, the struggles, the triumphs, and to say to yourself, I'm still learning. I'm going through the process,
absolutely.
but I go through the process first and I share what I've learned, and you're helping and impacting other lives through businesses, communities, everything in between. So I want to acknowledge you. That is amazing. There's so many key insights. There's so many questions that pop in my head.
Please.
But one of the things I wanted, and we definitely got to have you in again. I think you've got tons of not only experiences, but that value creation that can actually impact and change the lives of others, which is phenomenal. I ask this question to every guest that's on the podcast show. What is your meaning of motivation without the hype, and how to use motivation for your personal success?
I'm going to go a little bit against the grain, I think, with regard to what you've been doing in the past. I'm not convinced that motivation is the thing. Okay. And the reason for it is usually motivation is tied to emotion, and all emotions are fleeting. I really focus more on discipline, in that there are plenty of mornings I don't want or I don't feel motivated to get out of bed or to go to work. or to deal with the thing that needs to be dealt with that particular day. Like today, I had to deal with something within one of the businesses that I own that I didn't want to do. I was not in any way motivated to deal with that. But it had to be done. So discipline is the much more important factor, I think, in life. To be disciplined to do the things, even if you don't want to do, that you know have to be done. And that, I think, has been the thing that has gotten me to where I am the most, is because regardless of how I feel, I still do what I need to do. And that is what I would say is the biggest lesson I would encourage those who are consuming this content to try to absorb within your own life, is to just say, you know what, I'm going to be disciplined in it. And in discipline, you need to make decision. So, because you can't be disciplined without decision. And discipline leads to action, and action is the only thing that leads to outcome. Because you can sit back and you can do all the planning you want, you can strategize, you can talk about it, you can think about it, but until you do, nothing happens. So it's action that leads to outcome. And discipline is the thing that, for lack of a better term, motivates action.
Yeah. And that's key, like we talk about the emotion side of things, but motivation is like, it's not in the emotion. It's really a decision. You decide, be disciplined, build great habits around that, and actually take action. And the three enemies you mentioned about inflation, procrastination, taxation, these are just a couple of the elements. But then there are so many things in between that we need to build on. But it's that decision. It's being disciplined. It's a bit, showing up every day when you don't feel like showing up, building that greater habits. And, all these things that we've talked about that you shared is like nuggets. These are just valuable insights that come through experiences. But it's like, hey, guys, this is, part of the blueprint, and go for it, and accessing to a mentor. That's really important. I know that you've got a couple of programs there. And guys, do get in touch with Edward. All the links are provided on the show notes. Edward, it's such a privilege and honor to have you. Really, I am so inspired with action. But there's so many things that we want to get you back on to help in the lives of others, particularly with businesses as well that are currently struggling, particularly in this type of industry, in this type of area as well. So guys, again, please getting connected with Edward and follow him and all the show notes in there. He's also got his own podcast show. It's phenomenal.
Before I let you go, I do want to say that I'm inspired by what you're doing. I mean, again,
thank you.
When I was just getting started out in business, it was before YouTube, before Google. I didn't have access to the resources that people have access to nowadays. So I had to literally go out and find a handshake to grab onto, or go to what we hear bookstores like Barnes & Noble, etc., in order to find access to resources and knowledge that I had no access to. But you are creating an environment in which others can learn vicariously through you, through the guests that you bring on. So I just want to say thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's people like you that are indeed making it possible for people like me to grow and get better. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. With gratitude. Thank you for coming on the show, Edward. Oh man, you are on fire. And guys, if this episode has been helpful and uplifting, we'd love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to provide high value content in each and every episode. If you don't mind sharing this podcast show on social media by inviting others, it would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me or tag us, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspirational episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we'll see you on the next episode.